Well, I'd like to make some world building videos. Unfortunately, or I don't know, maybe it's unfortunate or not, I am stuck in Mexico on a work trip. I've been here all week. I'm going to be here all next week. I'm pretty busy when I'm traveling for work, and actually I'm pretty busy in general, so I don't know if I'm going to get to it soon or not. Maybe I will, though. Sometimes in the evening and on weekends I don't have much else to do. So this weekend, it's Sunday afternoon, and I have been just sitting in my hotel room, and I've been thinking about something, and I feel like I have. This may be confusing to people who have watched some of my videos or read my blog. I have two competing priorities in terms of what I like from RPGs, and they are mutually exclusive. I cannot do both of them, so I have to pick one or the other. The first one could be represented by my homebrew rules, The Shadow of Old Night, which is very much a rules-light game, and the definition of characters is very low. The character sheet is fairly simple. It's comparable to like a basic D&D OSR style game in terms of how complicated it is. It's very similar in many ways to what a Shadow Dark character would look like, or even maybe more so what a second edition Knave character would look like. So it's not a complicated system, and ultimately, in terms of playing and running, that is what I want. I want to focus on role-playing. I want to focus on things that are happening at the table. I do not like focusing on rules. I do not like being bogged down by rules. I do not like having too many rules. I like to have a simple framework that is well, it's simple, and it also kind of makes sense, so you could just, it's pretty obvious what kind of things you need to roll to do certain things if you need to roll at all. And that's probably my first priority, but I continually get called back by the swan song of character definition. And this is something that I definitely really enjoyed during my many years, and for better part of 16 years, I played either 3rd edition or 3.5 edition D&D. And a lot of things I did not like about the game, but one of the things I really did like is that there are so many character options. Now, one could say that with my Rules Light game, you have all those same options. There's just no mechanical representation of them, but if you want to see yourself as exactly the same kind of character that you can build with options, there's nothing stopping you, and then that's fair. But I like having definition to characters, and that's something that I really, really enjoy. I like having lots of classes. I like having classes that have options and a la carte kind of things that you can pick from, and I find that the very act of building and growing as you level up the characters in these more complicated systems gives me role-playing input. Now, I know 3.5 and even more so Pathfinder 1E, which was a minor variation or derivative of 3.5, kind of became infamous over time as a power gamer or Munchkin's Paradise, where you could build these kind of killer combos for mechanical reasons. I've never enjoyed that at all, and I never saw all those options as that's never how I imagined using them. And luckily, I was in a group for many, many years that none of them really played that way either. We were role players, and we enjoyed role playing, and we would build characters based on what sounded interesting from a role playing perspective. And if we weren't quote unquote optimized, or we weren't super munchkined out, well, okay, well, we weren't, and we didn't care. We didn't really want to play that way. And so a lot of the problems that people had with the system I didn't have. I had different problems with the system, and they were mostly based on the fact that I was just choking at rules after a while. So I'm constantly drawn by the swan song of, like I said, Siren Song maybe. It's actually the that's the phrase I'm looking for, of wanting systems that give me lots of options to build characters with, even though I don't really like running or playing those systems very much. I have found, and I talked a little bit about it in the last video that I posted a number of weeks ago, and I sure wish I had more time to post more videos. If some wealthy patron wants to pay me to make videos weekly on hiking and exploring the American West and playing D&D and playing D&D while hiking and talking about D&D while hiking and talking about D&D while just sitting around outside with beautiful mountains and deserts and whatever forests in the background, man, hit me up, because I would love to quit my job and do that. But anyway, I wish I could make more videos, and I wish I had more time and more mental energy to make videos, because one of the things that I did talk about in my last one, and I'd like to talk more about it and like to keep working on it, is a project where I could house rule D&D 3.5 and Pathfinder and hybridize the two of them and add other things too, like the elephant in the room, which is a slight house rule system for Pathfinder 1E that kind of eliminates the so-called feat taxes. I would use E6, which is a house rule capstone that was created for 3.5, but it would work with any level-based game. It would work for 5e, it would work for Pathfinder, it would work probably for, what's the Kobold Press book, Tales of the Valiant. Any of those systems that are similar to that, it should work for them too. And it keeps the game relatively low level and low powered so that it can be relatively grounded, low fantasy. And I had some other house rules too, that many of them were focused on further reducing the prevalence of magic and the ready accessibility of magic. And again, all of that is not only to make the game more fun for me, but also to make the setting make more sense to me. And I'm definitely, although I often say I'm not old school, but I very definitely am old-fashioned. And by that I mean the old school. I was unhappy with D&D back in the 80s. There's a lot of things it did that weren't what I wanted it to do, and a lot of things that it didn't do that are what I wanted it to do. But I'm not really, and I'm even less interested in the OSR playstyle, which focuses very much on, I don't know, on dungeon crawling especially, but on other things too that I'm just really not that interested in. So I'm not old school, where old school has a kind of a specific meaning, but I am old-fashioned in the sense that all of my tastes were crystallized back when darker fantasy, more grounded, realistic heroes, or even not necessarily always heroes, sometimes they were just characters rather than heroes, were the norm. And more lower fantasy, more realistic medieval setting was kind of the norm, with a bit of a fantasy twist. And they had, but it wasn't just all fantasy all the time. I look at character art, and I look at the rules and stuff of 5th edition, and I see something that looks like it can't decide if it's a hybrid of the Avengers and the Muppets and a Disney princess movie all rolled into one. And I just the whole vibe of the game is just not my style. And when I joined the 5e group after relocating to the Carolinas, I joined a group where they had literally just started a campaign. They had only run 1 or 2 sessions, so I jumped in at 2nd level, I think, and one of the things that the DM told me is that he had specifically, because their other group that he was in was this clown show, he specifically told me that he told the people in this group he wanted normal characters. He wanted traditional fantasy. He didn't want it to be, bird people and turtle people and all this weird nonsense that makes the game feel like the Muppets in a Disney Princess movie and all that other stuff. And he didn't want crazy superheroes, although I don't think because he says he is familiar with D&D from back in the 80s. He's almost my age. In fact, his birthday is literally the exact same day as my wife's. But he really only has played 4th edition and 5th edition, so I don't think he really understands the superhero nature of the game. But it's interesting to me that, maybe it's his age because he's part of my generation too, he also didn't want the silliness. And so I joined a group that was a human ranger, a human barbarian, a dwarf cleric, I think there's a changeling rogue, which is admittedly a little bit exotic, but he mostly just looked like a human. So my character was actually maybe one of the more exotic ones. He said, well, there's no arcane casters. I'm not really a fan of arcane casters, but I'll play a sorcerer. That's a relatively easy one to play. And I picked a fire genasi for my character. And like I said, I think that made me maybe a little more exotic than anybody except for the changeling rogue, I guess. Anyway, so once again, I have this weird tension. I want two different things. They're mutually exclusive. I can't get them both in the same game. But what I try to do, and I've been doing this since, I don't know, the mid OOs, maybe even the early OOs, 2003, 2004. I've been trying to make D&D fit into the specific box that I want my fantasy to be in. And I've been house ruling the heck out of it ever since. And I've mostly decided I just really would rather not play D&D. I'd rather play a different game that already is easier than having to have all these house rules. But I can't quite give it up. I can't quite give up wanting to try and find the perfect set of house rules. So anyway, I probably talked this to death more than I needed to, but I was just thinking about it while I was sitting out here in the 107-degree heat of the Hermosillo Desert, and I was walking around trying to find something to eat because I don't have a car. So I walked, a little over a mile one way to the best taco place in town and then back again. And it was hot and it was kind of long. It's a long walk. I was just thinking while I was doing it about this and why it is that I can't just completely leave these complicated systems alone. And I think that's why I just really, really love the art of building a character in a complicated system and picking a class that I think is perfect for him, and kind of having these built-in roles, and I discover a lot about the character by going through that you don't get the opportunity to do in a rules-light system, because you just slap a few stats together and a few abilities in a rules-light system, and that's your whole character. So everything you find out about him, you have to actually play the character to find anything out about him, really, or you've got to just sit there and write up a complicated backstory, which for various reasons, many of them also old-fashioned, I'm actually not really a fan of doing. So anyway, I will leave this here. This is probably one of the sillier videos, but I think I'm going to go ahead and post it anyway. And then when I come back, I'm going to do some world-building videos. It's been too long since I've done that, and I've done a fair bit of work, just not on my YouTube channel. So I want to kind of highlight a little bit of what I've been world building. So that's what I'll do when I come back.